Welcome to our daily reflection for this Monday, July 8th. And I love the readings today, and I really can't help but not connect the first reading from the prophet Hosea with the gospel reading. In the prophet Hosea, the Lord's saying, I will allure her, and I will woo her into the desert, and I will speak to her heart and renew my covenant, and she will call me my husband. And of course, he's speaking about Israel. That's the she. That's the woman here. It's the lady Israel. That the people of God, Israel, that has kind of wandered away from God after other husbands, other Baals and gods. And God says, I'm going to lure her in the desert and woo her back to me. I'm going to win her back. And, that's extraordinary, because if you think about a spousal love and a spouse whose spouse is, someone who's married and their spouse is unfaithful, there's anger and resentment. And yet God approaches it differently. He comes to that unfaithful spouse with kindness and gentleness, wooing them back. That's an extraordinary love, and that's what God is saying. That's who he is. And then we see this embodied in the gospel, because we have a hemorrhaging woman who's been sick for 12 years, and Jesus heals her and says, daughter, your faith has made you well. And then he goes to the daughter of Jairus and raises her from the dead. And in a sense, Jesus is that bridegroom. And the hemorrhaging woman and Jairus' daughter are all figures of the church, in this feminine aspect. And God wants the church to come back to himself. And so now notice that the context of leading and speaking to the heart, God leads the bride into the wilderness, into the desert. Now, that's not always the most pleasant place to go, right? The wilderness and desert. And yet it's there that the bride will be able to hear in her heart the call of love and renewal and the invitation of God's voice. And so sometimes we need to be led into a place of wilderness, a place of desert, so that we can hear the bridegroom speak in our heart and hear his voice. And so today in our meditation, let's think about ourselves as the bride and Jesus as the bridegroom. And he wants to woo us back to himself. And sometimes we think, I've been so unfaithful, I'm not worthy of God's love. And yet the bridegroom still summons. He still calls us. And sometimes he needs to take us into that desolate place where we can finally get away from the noise of the world and our own distractions and hear the bridegroom's voice calling us back to himself for renewal. Let's answer that summons today. May the Lord bless and keep you.
This daily reflection is brought to you thanks to the generous support of the Mission Circle. Join the Mission Circle to help Catholics worldwide understand, live, and share their faith. Sign up at missioncircle.org today.